Welcome to the month of May, English 1 students. It has been more than a month now that we have been doing school this way. And I guess I can't say that I miss asking you to sit down, stop your conversations, get off your phones, stuff like that, but I definitely miss you. I wish that I were doing this with you in the room. But I hope that you get something out of watching it, nevertheless. Last week, I gave you another project. It's your last big project for the year, unless you count your outside reading, and that is a poetry collection. A collection of poems that you are going to write. And I ask you to try certain things in that collection, certain techniques that poets use. One of those techniques is sound devices. In at least one of your poems, I said, you need to use some sound devices. So what do I mean by that? You're going to learn to recognize some different sound devices through this PowerPoint, this slideshow, and think about them, but you're also going to, I hope, be able to write some. So before we start looking at definitions and examples, just in general, what is a sound device? It is something that happens in a poem in which the poet is playing with the sounds of letters, thinking about how those sounds go together, how the sounds of letters in words that are close to each other, how those sounds play off of each other and maybe bring pleasure to our ears as we hear the poetry. And there are some different ways that poets can play with sounds. One of them is alliteration. So alliteration, I'm giving you definitions right now, and then I will come back and give you examples. The definition of alliteration is repeating the same consonant sounds at the beginnings of words. So alliteration is at the beginnings, first letters, and it has to do with consonants. Consonants, you probably remember, are letters that are not vowels. B, C, D, F, G, all the letters that are not vowels. So if we repeat the sounds of consonants at the beginnings of words, words that are close together, that's alliteration. Another sound device, a fun one, is onomatopoeia. It's fun to say this word. It's really hard to spell it. And they are fun words. Onomatopoeia is the use of words that sound like what they mean. So they are usually words that are about a sound, but the word sounds like the sound. That'll be more clear when I give you examples. Number 3, assonance. Assonance is also repetition, but it is repetition of vowel sounds. Remember, alliteration was repetition of consonant sounds, especially at the beginnings of words. Assonance is repetition of vowel sounds in words that are close to each other. Close enough that we recognize, I'm getting that sound again. We haven't forgotten it. And finally, consonants. So we have assonance and consonants. The word assonance starts with a vowel, and it is repetition of vowel sounds. The word consonants almost has the word consonant in it, and it is repetition of consonant sounds. So how is that different from alliteration? Easy. Alliteration is at the beginnings of words. Consonants is the repetition of consonant sounds elsewhere in the words, in the middle or at the end, somewhere in the words, but sounds that are close enough to each other that we recognize the repetition. Okay, so we got those 4. Let's look at some examples. An example of alliteration: the cruel beast armed with crooked claws. All right? Cruel, crooked, claws. Hear that repetition? The C sound at the beginning of those words. That's alliteration. All right? How about onomatopoeia? They expected the hiss of air, but heard the balloon pop. The word hiss makes a hissing sound when you say it. And similarly, when you say pop, especially if you say it into a microphone, it makes a popping sound. These are onomatopoeia, words that sound like what they mean. Assonance. Remember, that's repetition of vowel sounds. She was annoyed by the tinny ripple of the flipping silverware container. The short I sound, I, tinny, ripple, flipping, silverware. That's assonance, repetition of vowel sounds. Finally, consonants. I've heard you should feed a cold, d, d, but starve a fever. Repetition of consonant sounds, not at the beginning. Alliteration was at the beginning. Cruel, crooked. Assonance is somewhere else. Feed, cold, starve, fever. Okay? So those are examples. Let's look at some in the play. So I'm going to be pausing as we look at this next slide. I'll read an example, and then I'm going to pause because I want you to think, to see if you can find the sound device before I point it out. All right? So, here's one line from Maria. Where's Malvolio? He is sad and civil and suits well for a servant with my fortunes. Do you hear it or see it? Okay, I'll tell you. This is alliteration. This is an example of repeating the same consonant sounds. Notice you don't have to use the same letter as long as it makes the same sound. Sad, civil, suits, servant, alliteration. Malvolio. This does make some obstruction in the blood, this cross-gartering. This one's harder. It doesn't jump out at you, as I kind of hoped that first one did. If it didn't, it's okay. Anybody seen this one? I'm pausing. Let me tell you. I guess you could have just paused the video, but I'm pausing for you. Does some obstruction blood? It's enough times that I think it's on purpose. I can't be sure, but I feel like this was on purpose. We're repeating that sound. The repetition of a vowel sound is called assonance. All right. This one, yeah, maybe you should just pause after I read it, see if you can figure it out, and then push play, and I'll tell you, and you'll know if you're right. Fabian says, why, we shall make him mad indeed. Pause. Okay, now I'll tell you. Hope you figured it out. Here we are repeating consonant sounds, but not at the beginnings of words. Mad indeed. Consonants. We shall make him mad indeed. This might be an accident. It's few enough that I don't know if he meant to do it. But it's there. It is a repetition of consonant sounds. And it sounds nuts. Finally, also a line from Fabian. He is as horribly conceited of him, and pants and looks pale as if a bear were at his heels. Pause. Okay, let me tell you. This one is also trickier, but you might have gotten it. The word pants is onomatopoeia. Because you kind of pant when you say it. Especially if you draw the word out a little bit. You pant. Pant. This also has some alliteration in it, his heels. But this is the one I was looking for. So there you have it. Examples of all 4 sound devices. You don't have to find 4. The assignment that you're going to be doing today is to find in the play examples of 2 of these. You can't use the ones that I used. You're going to find other examples of 2 of these 4 sound devices and write them. And then you're also going to try writing your own line of poetry using the same sound device. So you find, let's say, an example of alliteration, you write it, you say this is alliteration, and then you write a line of poetry that also uses that sound device. You're doing that with 2 devices. You can do it. Let me know if you have questions. I hope you have a great start to the month of May. Bless you this week.